He asked for a bride by letter because no one had ever chosen him. But when the train stopped and the three Apache women stepped down looking only at him, smiles turned into tension. Hands began to tremble, whispers faded, and the entire town fell into absolute silence. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment where you're watching from, because now I'm gonna tell you everything. The afternoon sun was a white-hot coin in the sky, and Joe Henderson talked to his horse. It was easier than talking to people. "Easy, Dusty," Joe said, his voice rough from lack of use. He brushed the animal's flank. "Just you and me again, like always." The horse flicked its tail. The ranch yard was silent except for the buzz of flies. The house behind him was big and empty. It had been empty for 10 years since his mother and father passed. Joe finished brushing Dusty and stood for a moment, his hands on his hips. He looked out at the land, at the red rocks and the wide sky. It was beautiful. It was the only thing he had ever loved that didn't leave him. But that evening, the quiet felt different. It felt heavy. It sat on his chest like a stone. He made supper for one, the clang of the single pot loud in the kitchen. He ate at the big table, the sound of his own chewing too loud. The loneliness was not a new feeling, but tonight it was a deep physical ache right under his ribs. He washed his plate and fork. He sat in his father's old chair by the cold fireplace. He looked at his hands, calloused and dry, 50 years old, a whole life spent in this quiet. The thought made the ache sharpen. He stood up suddenly. He went to a small drawer and took out a piece of paper and a pencil. He sat back down at the table. For a long time, he just stared at the blank page. Then, he began to write. The words came slow, like water from a deep, rusty pump. Asterisk. To someone who might read this, my name is Joe Henderson. I live on a ranch near Cedar Fork, Arizona. The land is dry but good. I have a small herd of cattle. I have 2 horses. My house is too big for one person. I am a quiet man. I work hard. I like the sunsets here. The sky turns orange and purple over the red rocks. I like the smell of the desert after a rain. I like the silence, but sometimes the silence is too loud. I am looking for a partner, a woman who is not afraid of quiet days and hard work, a woman who might want to share this life. It is a simple life. It is an honest life. I have love to give. I just have no one to give it to. I do not know who will get this letter. I hope it finds its way to a kind heart. Sincerely, Joe Henderson, asterisk. He read it over. It felt foolish. A grown man writing a letter to no one. But the ache was still there, so he folded the paper. The next morning, he rode into Cedar Fork. The town was one street with a few buildings, a post office, a general store, a sheriff's office. People nodded at him. No one smiled. No one said more than, "Morning, Joe." He tied Dusty up outside the post office. Inside, the postmaster Sam looked up from his ledger. "Joe, ain't seen you in a bit. Got something to send?" "Just this one," Joe said, his voice quiet. He slid the letter across the counter. Sam picked it up. He read the address. His eyebrows went up a little. "Sending a letter to the Apache community out near White River? That's a long way east. You know someone out there?" Joe looked at his boots. "No, not exactly." Sam was quiet for a second. He shrugged. "Well, it'll get there. Mail's mail." He took Joe's coins and stamped the letter. "Be on the train tomorrow." "Thank you," Joe murmured. He left the post office. He stood on the wooden walkway for a minute. He saw Mrs. Ellis from the general store look at him, then whisper something to her friend. They both looked away. Joe felt his face get hot. He pulled his hat down and walked to Dusty. He rode back to the ranch. The big, empty house waited for him. He put Dusty in the corral. He did his evening chores. The whole time he thought about the letter. He imagined it on a train, moving farther and farther away into places he had never seen. He imagined it being opened by strangers. He imagined them laughing at his simple words. That night, the quiet felt worse. He had done something. He had reached out. Now, the waiting felt even lonelier than before. He sat on his porch as the sky turned orange and purple. He thought about the woman he described in the letter, a woman not afraid of silence. He knew no such woman existed in Cedar Fork. He was sure no such woman existed anywhere who would want a man like him. He went to bed. The house creaked around him. He told himself it was a silly thing sending that letter. He told himself not to expect an answer. He was very good at not expecting things. It was how he lived. It was how he got by. Out in the dark, the letter was already traveling east. A single piece of paper carrying a lonely man's heart into the unknown. Weeks passed. The sharp ache of loneliness that made Joe write the letter faded back into the dull, familiar background of his life. He did his chores. He talked to his horses. He avoided town. He told himself he had been a fool to hope for an answer. Then, on a Tuesday, the heat was so heavy it shimmered over the land. Joe was mending a fence post when he heard it. A long, lonely whistle. It was a sound he only heard a few times a year. The train was coming into Cedar Fork. He stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. The train almost never stopped here. It just slowed down on its way to bigger towns. A stop meant someone was getting on, or someone was getting off. Curiosity pulled him. He put his tools in the back of his old truck and drove the short distance into town. The main street was already crowded. Everyone in Cedar Fork had the same idea. The train stopping was the biggest event in months. He parked near the blacksmith shop and walked to the edge of the crowd, keeping to himself. He saw Mrs. Ellis from the general store. He saw Sam the postmaster. He saw Old Man Peterson. They were all talking, their voices excited. Sheriff Bill Hooper was there too, standing solid and watchful on the wooden platform, his hands on his belt. "Who do you suppose it is?" a woman next to Joe asked her friend. "Probably a salesman," the friend said. "Or maybe someone for the railroad checking the tracks." The train hissed and groaned to a stop. The big engine let out a cloud of steam. The doors of the passenger car stayed closed. The crowd got quiet, waiting. Then, the door opened. A conductor stepped down and placed a small step stool on the ground. He turned and offered his hand. A woman took it. She stepped down onto the Cedar Fork platform. Then another woman. Then a third. They were not salesmen. They were not railroad men. They were 3 Apache women. Their dresses were a deep, earthy red. Their long black hair was in thick braids. They carried simple cloth bags. The crowd's excited chatter died all at once. It was replaced by a complete thick silence. The women did not look at the crowd. They did not look at the buildings. Their eyes scanned the faces on the platform, calm and sure. Joe felt a cold trickle of sweat run down his back. He knew, in that moment, they were looking for someone. His heart began to pound very hard. The oldest woman, her face serious and strong, said something quiet to her sisters. Then, all 3 of them looked right at him. Joe was standing by the old water trough, half hidden behind 2 men in hats. But they saw him. They began to walk. They walked straight through the middle of the silent crowd. People moved back to make a path, their faces shocked. Sheriff Hooper stepped forward, blocking their way slightly. "Afternoon, ladies. Can I help you with something?" The oldest woman, Kaya, looked at him. Her gaze was direct and unafraid. "We are here to see Joe Henderson," she said. Her voice was clear. The sheriff's eyes flickered toward Joe, then back to the women. "Joe, what's your business with Joe Henderson?" "That is between us and him," Kaya said. She walked around the sheriff, her sisters following close behind. The crowd watched, their mouths open. No one spoke. The only sound was the scuff of the women's shoes on the dusty platform and the hissing of the train. Joe felt frozen. He could not move. He could not breathe. The 3 women stopped right in front of him. Up close, he could see the careful beadwork on their dresses. He could see the tiredness and the strength in their eyes. The middle sister, Lena, offered a small, gentle smile. The youngest, Julie, watched him with a quiet, curious look. Kaya spoke. "You are Joe Henderson?" Joe's mouth was dry. He tried to speak, but only a croak came out. He nodded his head. "I am Kaya. This is my sister, Lena. This is my sister, Julie." She paused, watching his face. "We received your letter." A whisper ran through the crowd behind them. Joe heard the words, "*letter? What letter?" Joe felt the world tilt. He had to put a hand on the water trough to steady himself. My letter?" "Yes," Lena said, her voice softer than Kaya's. "Your words about the land, and the quiet." Sheriff Hooper walked over, his boots heavy on the boards. He stood next to Joe, his presence large and official. "Joe, what is this about? What letter?" Joe looked from the sheriff's confused, suspicious face to the 3 women waiting for his answer. He had sent his lonely heart out into the world, and against all odds, it had been found. It had brought them here. He swallowed hard. He looked at Kaya. You came all this way?" "We did," Kaya said. The train whistle blew once, a sharp sound that made everyone jump. The conductor called out. The train was leaving. The decision was now. It was on him. Joe looked at the three women, then at the staring, silent town. He took a deep, shaky breath. He pointed a thumb toward his old truck. My ranch is that way. It's not much, but you're welcome to it. He saw the sheriff's eyes widen. He heard a woman in the crowd gasp, but he kept his eyes on Lena's kind face and on Kaya's steady gaze. He had written the letter. This was the answer. Now he had to live with it. The old truck bounced down the dirt road to the ranch, full of a silence louder than any noise. Joe kept his eyes on the ruts in the path, his hands tight on the wheel. He could feel the women looking out the windows. He could feel Kaya's serious presence right beside him. He pulled up in front of the house. The three women got out, taking their small bags. They stood together, looking at the wooden house, the big barn, the wide land. This is it, Joe said, his voice sounding too loud in the quiet air. Kaya nodded slowly, her eyes moving over everything. It is a big space. It's just me, Joe said. I mean, it was. There's room. Lena walked a few steps toward the garden patch, where a few weeds grew among some dry plants. You have beans here, she said. They didn't do too good this year, Joe said, coming to stand near her. I'm not much of a gardener. The soil is good, Lena said, bending down to touch it. It just needs more water and care. Chuli, the youngest, had not spoken a word. She stayed close to Kaya, her eyes taking in the house, the distant mountains, the horses in the corral. Let's go inside, Joe said. He led them up the porch steps and opened the front door. The inside was clean but bare, a couch, a table, a cold fireplace. There were no pictures on the walls. It was the house of a man who lived alone. Kaya walked into the center of the main room. She looked at the dust on the mantel. She looked at the single chair by the fireplace. You have 3 bedrooms? She asked. Yes, ma'am, Joe said. 2 down that hall. One's my parents' old room. I sleep in the one off the kitchen. It's smaller. We will take the 2 down the hall, Kaya said. It was not a question. Okay, Joe said. I'll get some fresh sheets. He was nervous, moving too fast. He banged his knee on the table. He dropped the sheets on the floor. Lena picked them up with a quiet smile. We can do this, she said. You show us where things are. So he showed them the kitchen. He showed them the water pump. He showed them the wood for the stove. He talked too much about nothing. Later he took them to see the animals. The horses came over. Lena held out her flat hand. One of the horses, Dusty, sniffed her fingers and let her stroke his nose. He likes you, Joe said. Animals know a good heart, Lena said. Kaya watched the cattle in the far field. How many head? 37, Joe said. You run them alone? Yes, ma'am, for years now. Kaya looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. She saw the tired lines around his eyes. She gave a small nod, but said nothing. That evening, Lena cooked. She found beans and cornmeal in the pantry. She moved around Joe's kitchen as if she had always been there. The smell of food was strange and wonderful in the house. They ate at the big table, Joe at one end, the 3 sisters together on the other side. The silence was heavy. Thank you for the meal, Joe finally said. It is good to cook for more than 3, Lena replied. Why did you come? The question came out of Joe suddenly. He hadn't meant to ask it. Kaya put her fork down. Your letter found my brother Thomas. He is a tracker for the army. He brought it to us. But why did you come? Joe asked again. All this way. For a stranger, Lena answered, her voice gentle. Your words did not sound like a stranger's words. They sounded true. We needed a new place. You seem to need someone. Joe looked at his plate. He felt a confusing mix of hope and fear. The town, the people at the train, they aren't happy. We saw, Kaya said, her voice flat. I'm sorry for that, Joe said. You did not throw their fear at us, Kaya said. They did. After supper, Joe went out to the porch. He needed air. A few minutes later, the door opened and Lena stepped out. She is not angry at you, Lena said quietly, looking out at the darkening land. Kaya is protective, that is all. I don't know what I'm doing, Joe admitted, the words a whisper. Neither do we, Lena said. She smiled a little. But the beans will be good tomorrow, and the horses are fed. That is a start. Inside, through the window, Joe could see Kaya brushing out Chuli's long hair by the firelight. It was a scene of family. It was a scene that had never happened in his house. His heart ached, but this time the ache was different. It was not just loneliness. It was the fear of losing something he had just found. He knew, deep down, that the stairs at the train station were only the beginning. The quiet of his ranch was now filled with a new, fragile hope, and he could already feel the outside world pressing in against it. The silence in town was worse than the staring. Joe needed supplies. He drove to Cedar Fork 2 days after the women arrived. When he walked into the general store, the conversation stopped. Mrs. Ellis stood behind the counter. She did not smile. Joe. "Morning, Mrs. Ellis. I need some flour and coffee." She turned to get the items. 2 other women in the store looked at him, then looked away quickly. They whispered to each other. Mrs. Ellis put the bags on the counter. "That'll be $3.50. Joe put the money down. "How are you, Mrs. Ellis?" "Fine," she said. Her voice was short. She did not ask how he was. She looked past him out the window. "Well," Joe said. He picked up his things. "You have a good day." She did not answer. Outside, old man Peterson was sitting on a bench. Joe nodded at him. Peterson spit a stream of tobacco into the dust. He did not nod back. The message was clear. Joe drove home, his face hot with shame. That afternoon, Hank Miller, who usually bought 2 of Joe's steers every month, came by the ranch. He stayed in his truck. Joe walked over. "Afternoon, Hank." Hank looked nervous. He looked past Joe toward the house. Lena was in the garden pulling weeds. "Joe, about them steers. I ain't gonna be needing them this month." "You said you needed them for the church social," Joe said. "Plans changed," Hank said. He wouldn't meet Joe's eyes. "Maybe next month." He put his truck in gear and drove away fast, kicking up dust. Joe walked slowly back to the house. Lena stood up, wiping her hands on her apron. She had seen. "He did not want the cattle?" she asked. "No," Joe said. Lena nodded. She looked sad, but not surprised. "It is because of us." "It's not right," Joe said, but his voice was weak. That night, they heard a truck engine roar up to the front of the property. Doors slammed. Someone shouted something mean. The words were muffled, but the anger was clear. Then tires spun and the truck sped away. Kaya stood up from the table and walked to the window. She looked out into the dark. "They are children," she said, her voice hard. Shouting from the dark. Joe felt sick. "I'm sorry." "Do not be sorry," Kaya said, turning to look at him. "Be ready." 3 days later, the trouble came to the house. It was after supper. Joe was washing a plate. A loud crash made him jump. Glass shattered. Something heavy thudded on the floor in the main room. Kaya was there first. A rock the size of a man's fist lay on the rug. A piece of paper was tied to it with string. The window by the front door was broken. Cold desert air blew in. Cooley made a small sound and moved closer to Lena. Lena put an arm around her. Joe picked up the rock. His hands shook as he untied the note. The writing was in big, ugly letters. "Send them back, or else." He held the paper out. Kaya took it. She read it. Her face did not change. She passed it to Lena. Lena read it. She looked at Joe. "This is what they are afraid of? 3 women?" "They don't know you," Joe said, his voice thick. They see something different. It scares them. And now I've brought it right to you." Lena shook her head. She pointed at the words on the note. "You asked for a woman not afraid of silence, not afraid of hard work." She looked him in the eyes. "You did not say we would be afraid of your people." Her words hit him hard. He had been feeling sorry for himself, for causing trouble. He had not thought about their courage. They had traveled across the desert to a strange place. They faced this hate every day, and they were not running. "You're right," he said quietly. He took the note back, crumpling it in his fist. "I'll fix the window." The next morning, Sheriff Bill Hooper drove up in his official car. Joe was nailing a piece of wood over the broken window. He saw the sheriff and his stomach tightened. Sheriff Hooper got out. He looked at the boarded-up window, then at Joe. "Morning, Joe." "Sheriff, heard there was some trouble last night." "A rock," Joe said, "through my window." "Any idea who?" "No," Joe said. "It was dark." The sheriff nodded. He took off his hat and ran a hand through his hair. He looked tired. "Joe, People in town are talking. They're real worked up. About what? Joe asked, though he knew. About your guests. The sheriff put his hat back on. They say it's not natural. They're scared. This rock business, it's just the start. It's gonna get worse. What do you want me to do, Sheriff? Joe asked, his voice low. It'd be easier on everyone, the sheriff said, not looking at the house. If those women moved on, found someplace else. Joe looked at the wood he had just nailed. He thought of Lena's words. He looked the sheriff in the eye. This is their place. They're staying. Sheriff Hooper's jaw tightened. He sighed. I can't protect you if this gets out of hand, Joe. I'm not asking you to, Joe said. He turned and picked up his hammer. The conversation was over. The sheriff stood for a moment, then got back in his car and drove away. Joe watched him go. He felt a new feeling, cold and solid in his chest. It was not just fear anymore, it was determination. He had brought them here. He would stand with them, even if he had to stand alone. The smell of smoke woke Joe. It was after midnight. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding. It wasn't the normal smell of a fireplace. This was sharp and sour. He pulled on his pants and ran to the main room. Kaya was already at the window, looking out toward town. A faint orange glow lit the horizon. Fire, she said quietly. Lena and Chuli came out of their room, wrapped in shawls. Is it here? Lena asked, her voice tight. No, Joe said. It's in town. He felt a cold dread. He thought of the general store, the wooden buildings all close together. They all stood and watched the glow for a long time. It slowly faded, replaced by the dark of the night. No one went back to sleep. At first light, Joe drove into town. The main street was full of people. The front of the general store was black and wet. The windows were broken. Men were carrying out charred boxes and piles of ruined goods. Mrs. Ellis was sitting on a chair outside, her face in her hands. Sheriff Hooper was directing people. He saw Joe and walked over. His face was grim and covered in soot. Bad? Joe asked. Bad enough, the sheriff said. Started in the back storage room. Took us half the night to put it out. Lost most of the dry goods. Could have been the whole town. I'm sorry to see it, Joe said, meaning it. Deputy Clyde walked up. He was a young man with a hot temper. His clothes were wet and dirty. He looked at Joe with pure hate. We know how it started, Clyde said, his voice loud. Sheriff Hooper held up a hand. Clyde, we don't know anything yet. We all know, Clyde shouted, turning to the crowd that was gathering. It was them, those witches out at Henderson's place. They put a curse on this town, and now this. A murmur went through the people. They looked at Joe with frightened, angry eyes. Now hold on, the sheriff said, but his voice lacked force. Mrs. Ellis stood up, her face streaked with tears and soot. My store, my father built this store, and you brought those savages here. She pointed a shaking finger at Joe. It wasn't them, Joe said, his voice trembling. They were at the ranch all night. How would you know? Clyde spat. You're probably under their spell too. The crowd pressed closer. Their fear from the fire needed a place to go. Clyde gave them one. They're a danger, Clyde yelled. They don't belong here. First the rock, now this. What's next? Are they gonna poison the well? The crowd rumbled in agreement. He's right, a man shouted. Send him packing. Sheriff Hooper tried to step in front of Clyde. Everyone just settle down. We'll have an investigation. No more waiting, Clyde yelled, pushing past the sheriff. He turned to the men in the crowd. Are we gonna let them burn our town down? Are we gonna wait for them to hurt our children? The shout that came back was loud and united. No! Then let's go, Clyde shouted. Let's go and tell them to get out. We take torches so they see us coming, so they know we're not afraid of their darkness. The men cheered. They began to gather kerosene torches and lanterns, even though the sun was coming up. Sheriff Hooper grabbed Clyde's arm. Clyde, this is not the way. This is mob law. It's the only law they understand. Clyde yanked his arm free. He lit a torch with a shaking match. The flame caught and grew. Joe backed away, his blood running cold. He turned and ran to his truck. He heard the mob forming behind him, their voices angry and scared. He fumbled with the keys, finally starting the engine. He drove out of town faster than he ever had. He skidded to a stop in front of the ranch house and burst inside. The three women were at the table waiting. They're coming, Joe gasped, out of breath. A mob from town. They think you started the fire. Clyde's leading them. They have torches. Kaya stood up. Her face was calm, but her eyes were fierce. How many? Maybe 20 men. Maybe more. Lena reached for Chuli's hand. What will we do? Joe looked at them. He saw their strength and their fear. He thought of the rock, the note, the hate in Clyde's eyes. His own fear was a cold stone in his gut, but underneath it, something else was growing, something solid. He walked to the corner of the room. He picked up his old rifle. He checked to see if it was loaded. What are you doing? Lena asked softly. My letter brought you here, Joe said, his voice low and steady. This is your home. I won't let them chase you out. He walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped onto the porch. He looked down the long, empty road toward town. In the distance, he could see a line of tiny, flickering lights. They were coming. He cocked the rifle. The sound was loud in the morning quiet. He stood there, alone on the porch, and waited. The line of torches moved up the road like a fiery snake. Joe could hear the men now, their shouts growing louder. He tightened his grip on the rifle. His palms were slick with sweat. The mob stopped at the edge of his yard. 20 men, maybe more. Their faces were hard in the torchlight. Clyde stood in front, holding his torch high. Henderson, Clyde yelled. We're done asking. Send those women out. They're leaving this town today. Joe's voice shook, but he spoke. They're not leaving. This is their home. Their home, a man behind Clyde shouted. They burned down the Ellis store. They didn't, Joe said. They were here all night. We only got your word for that. Clyde took a step forward. And your word ain't worth much anymore. Now stand aside. Joe raised the rifle, holding it across his chest. It felt heavy and wrong in his hands. I won't. The men murmured, angry. Clyde's face twisted. You gonna shoot your neighbors, Joe, for a bunch of witches? Before Joe could answer, the front door opened behind him. He didn't turn, but he heard the gasps from the crowd. Kaya stepped out onto the porch, then Lena, then Chuli. They stood together, facing the mob without a weapon between them. You stay back inside, Joe whispered, his voice desperate. Kaya ignored him. She walked forward and stood at the top of the porch steps. She looked at Clyde, then at all the men. The torchlight flickered in her dark eyes. You come to my home with fire, she said, her voice loud and clear. You shout like children. Why? Clyde was taken aback by her lack of fear. You know why. The fire. You did it. I did not, Kaya said, each word sharp. My sisters did not. We were in this house. We sleep under this man's roof. We eat his food. Why would we burn a store we have never seen? Because you're savages, another man yelled. Kaya's stare silenced him. We are Apache. We are not thieves who burn in the night. We came here for peace. Then leave and find it somewhere else, Clyde shouted. No, Kaya said. She took one step down. The crowd flinched. We came because Joe Henderson sent a letter my brother Thomas found. My brother is a tracker for the United States Army. He is a good man. He read the words. He saw the loneliness in them. He knew his sisters needed a new start, far from our own troubles. He sent us here, not to bring fire, but to find safety. The crowd was quiet, listening. Her words were not what they expected. Your brother? Clyde said, confused. The army sent you? He did not send us. He showed us a path, Kaya corrected him. Joe's letter was a hand reaching out. My brother saw it. We took that hand. We are not witches. We are 3 women. We are sisters. We came because one lonely man asked for a partner, and we needed a home. The men looked at each other. Some lowered their torches a little. The story sounded too simple, too human for the monsters they had imagined. Then, Sheriff Hooper pushed his way through the crowd. He was out of breath. He must have run from town. He stood between Clyde and the porch. That's enough, Clyde, the sheriff said, his voice firm. You hear that? They came because of a letter. There's no proof they had anything to do with the fire. Clyde was still angry, but he was losing the crowd. He pointed at Kaya. She's lying. She's just telling a pretty story. Sheriff Hooper turned to look at Kaya, to tell her to go back inside. His eyes met hers in the flickering light. He stopped. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He stared at her face as if he were seeing a ghost. All the color drained from his own face. Kaya stared back. Her strong posture did not change, but her eyes widened just for a second. The sheriff took a stumbling step closer to the porch, his lawman's authority gone. His voice was a dry, broken whisper that everyone heard in the sudden quiet. "Kaya, little bird?" A tear, not of sadness, but of pure, hot rage, rolled down Kaya's cheek. She did not wipe it away. She looked at the man who had just spoken her childhood name, and her next words were not for the mob. They were for him alone. "Hello, William," she said. The name hung in the air like a gunshot. No one moved. The torches flickered, casting wild shadows on the stunned faces of the men. Sheriff Hooper looked like a man who had been struck. He swayed on his feet. It can't be you." "It is," Kaya said. Her voice was cold and sharp. "Look at me. Do you see her? Do you see my mother in my face?" The sheriff's eyes filled with a terrible understanding. He took another step closer, his hand reaching out before he let it drop. "Little bird, I was told." "Told what?" Kaya's question cut through the night. "That we were gone? That it was easier to believe we no longer existed?" Deputy Clyde broke the spell. "Sheriff, what is this? You know this woman?" The sheriff did not turn around. He could not look away from Kaya. 25 years ago, he said, his voice hollow and far away. "I was a soldier. My name was William Creek. I was stationed near her village. Kaya took over, her words aimed at the crowd, making sure every man heard. He knew my mother. He gave her promises. He said he would come back for her. For us." She looked back at the sheriff, her rage a living thing. "Then the soldiers came. They made us leave our home. We were moved far away. We waited. My mother waited until the day she died. You never came, William. You changed your name and you never came." Sheriff Hooper, William, shook his head, a weak, broken motion. "I tried. The orders. They sent me east. Then I heard the village was moved. I didn't know where." "You did not look," Kaya shouted. The force of it made everyone jump. "You built a new life here. You put on a badge. You became a big man in a small town, and you forgot us." The men in the mob looked at their sheriff with new eyes. Their anger toward the women was dissolving, replaced by confusion and a dawning shame. They were watching a man break apart. Joe lowered his rifle, his own shock complete. He looked at Kaya, then at the sheriff. He understood now. The women didn't just come for a new start. They were running from a ghost, and the ghost was the town's own sheriff. Lena walked forward and stood beside Kaya, not for protection, but for support. She spoke to the sheriff, her voice softer, but no less firm. "Your letter, Joe's letter, it was read by our brother. He is your son, Thomas. He never knew your name, only stories. He found the letter and sent us west. He thought he was sending us to safety. He did not know he was sending us to you." The sheriff made a small, pained sound. He had a son. He had 3 daughters. He had left them all behind. Clyde stared, his torch now hanging limp at his side. "So this is a family matter?" "It is my life," Kaya fired back, turning her fury on him. "It is my sister's lives. You came here with fire to drive away witches, but we are not witches. We are his forgotten children." The mob was utterly silent now. The fight had gone out of them. This was not a simple story of good townsfolk and dangerous outsiders. This was messy and painful and human. One of the men dropped his torch into the dirt and stamped it out. Another man turned and started walking slowly back toward town. Then another. Clyde looked at the retreating men, then at the shattered face of his sheriff. His own anger seemed pointless now. He tossed his torch onto the ground. "Sheriff?" he said, unsure. Sheriff Hooper did not answer. He was still staring at Kaya, his eyes begging for a forgiveness he knew he did not deserve. Joe finally found his voice. "It's over," he said to the few remaining men. His words were quiet but firm. "Go on home." The men left, shuffling away into the pre-dawn gray, leaving behind only the smell of smoke and shame. In the yard, it was just the 5 of them. The sheriff stood alone. Joe stood on the porch with the rifle. The 3 sisters stood together, facing the man who was their father. The sky began to lighten, turning from black to deep blue. The truth was out now, heavier than any torch or rock. It changed everything. Joe looked at Lena, at Shuli, at Kaya's proud, wounded back. His simple dream of companionship was gone. In its place was something more real, more broken, and more complicated than he ever could have written in a letter. The dawn light spread, cold and gray. The yard was empty except for them. The sheriff stood like a man waiting for a sentence. Joe finally uncocked his rifle and lowered it. The metal click was loud. He looked at the three women, then at the broken man in his yard. He didn't know what to do. Kaya turned her back on Sheriff Hooper. She walked past Joe and into the house. The door shut firmly behind her. Lena let out a long, slow breath. She looked at Chuli. "Go inside with Kaya," she said softly. Chuli nodded and followed her sister. That left Joe and Lena on the porch and Sheriff Hooper in the dirt. Lena touched Joe's arm. "Put the rifle away, Joe." He nodded. He took the gun inside and leaned it in its corner by the door. Kaya was standing by the cold fireplace, her arms wrapped around herself. Cooley sat at the table, watching her sister. When Joe came back out, Lena was still on the porch. The sheriff hadn't moved. "Bill," Joe said. He didn't call him sheriff. Sheriff Hooper flinched at the sound of his name. He looked up, his eyes red. "Joe, I didn't know." "I believe you," Joe said. It was true. The man's shock was too complete to be fake. "You have to understand," the sheriff began, but his words trailed off. There was nothing to make them understand. "Why did you never look for them?" Lena asked. Her voice was not angry, just tired. "I was ashamed," he whispered. "I was young. I was scared. I got new orders. I told myself they were better off. I told myself so many times I started to believe it." He looked at the house. "Kaya, my little bird. She was just a child. She must have been 3, 4, 4, Lena said from the porch. A sob choked out of him. He put his hands over his face. Joe had never seen a man look so empty. All the authority was gone. This was just William Creek, a man who had made a terrible choice a long time ago and had to live with it now. "Your son," Joe said. "Thomas. He's a good man." The sheriff dropped his hands. He nodded, unable to speak. "He is," Lena said. "He is a good brother. He protected us. He thought he was sending us to a kind man. He did not know he was sending us to you." The cruel twist of it hung in the air. Joe felt the weight of it all. His letter, a simple cry of loneliness, had pulled a thread that unraveled a life built on a lie. "You should go," Joe said to the sheriff. "This isn't the time." The sheriff nodded. He wiped his face with his sleeve. He looked old. He turned and walked to his car. He did not look back. Joe and Lena went inside. Kaya was still standing by the fireplace. "Kaya," Lena said. "Do not," Kaya said, her voice tight. "Do not ask me if I am all right." "I won't," Lena said. They sat at the table. No one made coffee. No one moved to start the day. The truth was a heavy stone in the room. "He is my father," Kaya said to the wall. "The man who let them shout at us with torches. That man is my father." She let out a sharp, bitter sound. "My mother loved him. She cried for him." Joe looked down at his hands. "I'm sorry," he said. "My letter, it was selfish. I just didn't want to be alone. I didn't think." Kaya turned to look at him. Her anger was not for him now. "Your letter was honest. It was a good thing. It brought us here. It brought him into the light. That is not your fault." She took a deep breath. "I am angry at the world. I am angry at him. I am not angry at you, Joe Henderson." He felt a small, hard knot in his chest loosen just a little. "What happens now?" Cooley asked. It was the first time she had spoken since the night before. They all looked at each other. Joe realized he didn't know. The town had seen their sheriff fall apart. The women's secret was out. His own life was tied to theirs now. "I don't know," Joe said honestly. "But you stay. This is your home. We figure out the rest from here." Lena reached across the table and put her hand over his. Her touch was warm and sure. "We will figure it out," she said. Outside, the sun rose fully over Cedar Fork. The town would be waking up, whispering about the fire, the mob, and the secret on the ranch. The pieces of their old lives were broken around them. Now they had to see what, if anything, they could build from the wreckage. 2 days after the mob, a truck pulled up to the ranch. It was not the sheriff. It was Hank Miller, the man who had stopped buying Joe's cattle. Joe saw him from the porch. He stood up, his body tense. Lena was nearby, weeding the garden. She stood up too, watching. Hank got out. He held a pie dish covered with a cloth. He walked slowly toward the house, looking at his boots. "Joe," Hank said, stopping a few feet away. "Ladies." "Hank," Joe said. His voice was flat. Hank held out the pie. "My wife Sally, she made this. Apple. She wanted you to have it." Joe looked at the pie, then at Hank's face. The man looked ashamed. Joe took the pie. "Thanks Sally for us." Hank nodded. He scuffed his boot in the dirt. "About them steers, I'll take 4 next month if you still got 'em, for the church social, and for my own place." "I got 'em," Joe said. "Good, that's good." Hank stood there, uncomfortable. He looked at Lena. We're real sorry about the other night. The fire, the yelling. It weren't right." Lena nodded slowly. "Thank you for the pie." Hank nodded back, relieved. He turned and walked to his truck and drove away. Joe looked at the pie in his hands. It was warm. "A peace offering," Lena said. "Maybe," Joe said. Later that afternoon, old Mrs. Grady from the edge of town came by in her wagon. She brought a sack of early vegetables from her garden. She was a quiet woman who never talked much to anyone. "For you," she said to Lena, handing her the sack. She looked at Joe. "My Jake, he was a lonely man too, before me." She gave a small, sharp nod, then got back in her wagon and left. Not everyone came. The town was split. People still looked away when Joe went to the store, but now some people nodded. Mrs. Ellis did not bring a pie. Her store was still burned, but she did not shout at him either. It was a cold quiet, not a hateful one. On the 3rd day, Sheriff Hooper's car came up the road. Joe was fixing the corral fence. He saw the car and his muscles tightened. He waited. The sheriff got out. He was not wearing his uniform. He wore plain pants and a shirt. He looked like just a man. He walked over to the fence. "Joe." "Bill." "I came to see if I could talk to Kaya." He said her name carefully like it was a fragile thing. Joe looked toward the house. "That's up to her. You wait here." Joe went inside. Kaya was in the main room, weaving a basket from dried reeds. Her fingers moved fast and sure. "He's here," Joe said. "He wants to talk to you." Kaya's hands did not stop. "I have nothing to say." "He's not wearing his badge," Joe said. That made her pause. She looked out the window. She saw the man standing by the fence, his head down. She put her weaving aside. She stood up and walked outside. Joe watched from the doorway. Lena came to stand beside him. Kaya walked up to the fence. She did not go through to his side. She stayed inside the corral. "You wanted to talk." The sheriff took a deep breath. "Yes, I don't know where to start." "Start with my mother's name," Kaya said. Her voice was not loud, but it was hard. The sheriff closed his eyes for a second. "Ayanna. Her name was Ayanna. It meant eternal blossom." Kaya's stern face trembled for just a moment. "You remember." "I remember everything," he whispered. "I have remembered every day. I was a coward." "Yes," Kaya said. "You were." She let the truth sit between them. "Why did you come today?" "To say I am sorry. It is not enough. It will never be enough. But I am sorry, and I would like to know my daughters, if you will let me." Kaya looked past him, at the wide land. "I do not know if I can do that. The anger is very old. It is part of my bones." "I understand," he said. His shoulders slumped. "But," Kaya said, and he looked up, "you can start by being a better man to this town, a better sheriff. That would be a beginning." Hope flickered in his eyes. "I can do that. I will." She nodded once. That was all. She turned and walked back to the house. The conversation was over for today. Later, Joe was watering the new bean plants Lena had put in. Julie came and stood near him. She pointed at a small, spiky plant with yellow flowers growing wild near the fence. "That is called hodulja," she said softly. Joe looked at her. It was the most she had ever said to him alone. "Hodulja. What does it mean?" "It means plant that waits for the sun. You call it a thorny poppy. It is strong. It can live where nothing else can." She pointed to another. "That is ilachal. You call it a wolfberry. The birds eat it." Joe listened. He learned the words. They were hard to say, but he tried. Truly smiled a little when he got one right. That night, supper was quiet, but it was not a heavy quiet. It was the quiet of people thinking, of wounds beginning to scab over. Joe looked around the table, at Kaya, who had faced her ghost, at Lena, who was smiling at him, at Chuli, who had spoken the names of the plants. He was not lonely anymore. The house was full. It was not a simple happiness. It was a complicated, hard-won peace. And for the first time in his life, Joe Henderson felt it was real. The rhythm of the ranch changed. It was no longer the quiet beat of one man's solitude. It was the sound of a family learning its steps. Joe woke up at 5 every morning. Now, when he walked into the kitchen to start the coffee, Lena was often already there, smiling as she warmed the skillet. They worked side by side without needing to speak. One morning, she left a small piece of paper near his coffee cup. He picked it up. The writing was careful and beautiful. The red earth drinks the morning rain, the quiet hands that hold the reins. A heart, once empty, starts to mend. A lonely road has found its end. He read it twice. He looked at her. This is for the ranch? It is for you, Lena said softly. Joe didn't know what to say. He folded the paper carefully and put it in his shirt pocket, right over his heart. Thank you, Lena. Kaya's hands were always busy. She repaired the torn porch screen. She wove tight, strong baskets for the garden harvest. One afternoon, Joe found her sitting under a tree, a half-finished blanket across her lap. The pattern was intricate, with colors like the sunset and the dark earth. That's real pretty, Joe said. It is a story, Kaya said, her fingers not stopping. This blue is the sky. This red is the canyon. This black is the night the mob came. This yellow is the new sun after that night. You're putting all that in there? A blanket should be strong. It should hold all the truth, not just the pretty parts. She looked at him. It is for the house. Joe understood. It was her way of making this place her own. It's a good story, he said. Cooley had claimed a corner of the garden near the house. She planted seeds she had saved from plants back home, a squash with a strange, curved neck, beans that were a deep purple. Joe helped her build a small fence to keep the rabbits out. Why these ones? He asked as they worked. They taste like home, she said. But they will grow here too. They are strong. She taught him more words. The tall, swaying grass was klo. The rabbit was ***. He practiced them, and sometimes she would laugh gently when his pronunciation was funny. Her laugh was a rare, bright sound. Sheriff Hooper came by once a week. He never wore his uniform. He came as William Creek. The first few visits, he just talked to Joe about town news or the weather, his eyes always drifting toward the house where Kaya was. On his fourth visit, Kaya was on the porch mending a harness. He stopped at the bottom of the steps. Kaya, she looked up. William, I brought something. He held out a small worn book. It's a book of birds. For Arizona, I had it from a long time ago. I thought you might like it. She put down the harness. She walked down and took the book. She opened it. The pages were soft with age. She saw handwritten notes in the margins in a young man's writing. Asterisk. Saw this one by the creek. Song sounds like. Her throat tightened. She closed the book. Thank you. You're welcome. He turned to go. The blue bird with the rust chest, Kaya said suddenly. He turned back. It comes to the fence post every afternoon. What is it called? He thought for a moment. A western bluebird, I think. She nodded. She did not smile, but her face was not hard. I will look it up. It was a small thing, but it was a beginning. The town, for the most part, was calm. Hank Miller bought his 4 steers. Some people still gave them cold looks, but others waved. The fire at the general store was ruled an accident. A lantern that had been knocked over. Deputy Clyde had been sent to work in the next county over. Sheriff Hooper had made sure of it. One Sunday, Joe and Lena went for a walk at the edge of the property. The sun was setting, painting the sky in stripes of orange and purple. It is the sunset you wrote about, Lena said. It is, Joe said. He took her hand. It was the first time he had done that. Her fingers laced with his, warm and strong. Are you still lonely, Joe Henderson? She asked. He looked at their joined hands. He looked at the ranch house in the distance, where smoke rose from the chimney. He thought of Kaya's weaving and Julie's garden and the poem in his pocket. "No," he said, "I am not lonely anymore." They walked back to the house as the first stars appeared. Inside, Kaya was reading the bird book by lamplight. Julie was sketching a plant in a notebook Lena had given her. The room was warm and full of quiet life. It was not a perfect family. It was a family made from broken pieces and brave choices, from loneliness and loss, from a letter sent into the dark that found its way to the light. Under the vast Arizona sky, the ranch was no longer just a piece of land. It was a home. It was a new beginning, built one day, one word, one brave heart at a time.